let's see the road to Atiku's victory in the just concluded PDP presidential primary held in Abuja. This is put together by our Rice correspondent Leila Johnson-Salami.
By the power vested on me as the Chief Returning Officer of the 2022 Presidential Electoral Committee, I, Senator David Alechenu Bonaventure Mark, GCON, hereby return Atiku Abubakar, having scored the highest number of valid votes during the presidential primary election held on Saturday, May the 28th, 2022 at the Velodrome Complex, Abuja, FCT, as the winner of the election. He is hereby returned elected.
Nigeria's former Vice President, Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, has emerged as the winner of the People's Democratic Party presidential primary elections. Mr. Abubakar secured 371 votes, ahead of Rivers State Governor Nyesom Wike, who secured 237 votes, and former Senate President Bukola Saraki, who secured 70. While Atiku's victory may not come as much of a surprise given his political track record, how he emerged as the PDP's presidential candidate was a product of last-minute negotiation and compromise.
Now you will recall on the 23rd of March this year, when I stood before you and Nigerians and declared my interest to run for the office of the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. In that statement, I made a commitment to 5 issues. 1, to pledge to unify this country. And that was why I referred myself as a unifier. The reason why I feel and I felt that unity is very important for us is because the government of the APC has disunited Nigerians completely between North and South, East and West, Muslims and Christians. And I therefore pledge that I will work to ensure I restore unity and I give a sense of belonging to all Nigerians, irrespective of their places of origin and irrespective of the faith they practice. I also committed that I was going to deal decisively with our security challenges in this country. I also pledged to confront our economic challenges, which were all caused by the APC government. The PDP made Nigeria one of the most prosperous, or if not the prosperous country on the African continent. We implemented economic reforms that brought about jobs, that brought about prosperity in this country. The APC came and wiped out all those gains. Ladies and gentlemen, that's why I said today is a very, very historic day, because it is going to give us an opportunity for us to reverse all the misgovernance of the APC government. Let me also use this opportunity to call on my fellow contestants and to assure them that I am ready to cooperate and work with them and give them a sense of belonging in this party and our next government. Therefore, my fellow compatriots, I want to appreciate your efforts in deepening our democratic processes in this party. It was a well-fought primary elections. So I commend you for that, and I look forward to working with you very closely so that together we can build this party to a level where we can take over the government. As I said earlier on in my remarks, I want to appeal to all aggrieved members of our party that they should please return to our party, and we are willing, we are ready, the leadership of the party, our governors, and myself, to make sure that their grievances are resolved within the party.
For context, in 2014, the former vice president joined the newly founded All Progressives Congress and lost to the then Major General Muhammadu Buhari in the primary. Atiku returned to the PDP in 2018 to contest in the presidential primaries, becoming its candidate for the 2019 election with Mr. Peter Obi as his running mate. Atiku lost the presidential election with a total of 11.2 million votes, winning in 17 states and the Federal Capital Territory. After cooling off outside the country for a while following the defeat, the former vice president returned to the country to relaunch his bid for the PDP ticket for the 2023 presidency. According to this day newspaper, ahead of the PDP presidential primary, former National Security Advisor, retired Lieutenant General Aliyu Gusau, and former Governor of Sokoto State, Atahiru Bafarawa, instituted quick and strategic maneuverings that led to the emergence of Atiku. Retired Lieutenant General Gusau, being a PDP faithful, orchestrated his pro-Atiku plans with the support of other northern elders, making overtures to other aspirants in the race to ensure that Atiku emerged. Arise News further learns that northern leaders attempted to get Senator Bukola Saraki and Governor Bala Mohammed to step down for a consensus candidate. But both disagreed primarily because they felt the meeting should have taken place earlier, considering the resources that had already been spent. During the PDP presidential primary, it was widely reported that Atiku had stormed out of the convention. Well, we can report that he left to finalize his agreement with Governor Aminu Tambuwal, who had agreed to step down in support of the former vice president. It was believed that Tambuwal could have the most impact on Atiku in terms of the northern delegates, as he has widespread support in Sokoto, Zamfara, Kebbi, and also parts of Jigawa State, all of which have high delegate counts. Shortly after Atiku's temporary exit, Tambuwal gave a speech.
PDP, power to the people, the national chairman of our party, the convention planning committee chairman, respected leaders of our party, ladies and gentlemen. I, Aminu Waziri Tambuwal, having consulted widely throughout the length and breadth of this country, from the southeast to the south-south, to the southwest, to the north-central, northeast, and indeed northwest, consulted so many leaders and my supporters. Have come to the firm belief and conviction that as leaders, time may come in our sojourn to make sacrifice for the good of the people. And in view of the situation of our country and the need for us in our party to minimize rancor and jostling for power, in any case, it is not always about one individual. It must always be about our country. I have come to the conclusion that to the glory of God Almighty, seen and from the result of what I've seen throughout the country, millions of Nigerians suffering, and the need for us to close ranks in the party. And as one of the leaders of this party, I have come to a patriotic conclusion to step down my aspiration, and not only that, but I appeal to my supporters to take this in good stride and in the hands of national unity, patriotism, and not only that, those who are delegates here should vote for Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, Wazir Adama, PDP.
The question is, why did Governor Tambuwal wait until the 11th hour before announcing that he was stepping down? According to our sources, PDP's northern elders felt that an element of surprise was necessary to avoid Governor Nyesom Wike, who had a lot of support, from swooping in and having any influence on the delegates. Once it was clear that Wike had lost the primary, he felt uncomfortable and left the venue. But ahead of this, he had addressed his party and the public, stating that he will support any candidate that emerges as the winner of the primary.
PDP! Power! 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 Your Excellencies, our dear leaders, very important delegates today, gentlemen of the press, ladies and gentlemen, I have come to your states to speak to you. Today is for me to thank you. It's for me to thank you for the energy. Since morning, you have been here because of this party. Thank you, special delegates. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Listen, I will speak to you on two issues. One is the party. Let me vow today, anybody who emerges here, I will support the person to the fullest. Anybody who emerges here today, I will support the person to the fullest. Because I'm a committed party person, because I love this party, because since 1998, I've been in this party. I work for this party. I will not go anywhere. This is my party. Secondly, if I emerge today, every state that has a problem, it is my duty to make sure the party is united. We'll unite everybody to make sure we win this election 2023. You know, I didn't come here today to tell you about theory. What is the problem with Nigeria? Leadership. Leadership is the major problem with Nigeria. Therefore, PDP, you must not make mistake. You must have a courageous leader, a fearless leader, somebody who can withstand APC. And it is me. It is me. Please, please, my dear delegates, send me for this assignment. Let me go and win APC. I will win APC for the power to come back to PDP on behalf of Nigerians.
The past 48 hours have been full of pulsating drama with twists and turns. Ahead of the PDP convention, the Independent National Electoral Commission extended the deadline for party primaries to June 9th. This led the ruling All Progressives Congress to postpone their convention to June 6th to 8th, a move that the PDP expressed displeasure with. While there was speculation that the PDP may have postponed their convention too, based on the party holding an emergency meeting to counter INEC and the APC, the event went ahead and a candidate emerged. Atiku's victory is certainly expected to shape the APC strategy over the next few days, and it's widely believed that the party may put forward a consensus candidate. With the Federal High Court in Yenagoa ruling that former President Goodluck Jonathan is eligible to contest in the 2023 elections, it is possible that he may emerge as the APC presidential candidate. Other frontrunners in the ruling APC include the national leader of the party, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, current Vice President of Nigeria, Yemi Osinbajo, current Governor of Ekiti State, Kayode Fayemi, former Minister of Transportation, Rotimi Amechi, current Senate President, Ahmad Lawan, current Governor of Kogi State, Yahaya Bello, former Minister of Niger Delta Affairs, Godswill Akpabio, and former Minister of Science, Technology and Innovation, Ogbonnaya Onu. In total, there are 23 aspirants in the party. Over the next few days, the APC will be focused on the best strategy that they can adopt to stay in power. And for the PDP, picking a running mate for Atiku Abubakar and reconciling various interest groups within the party are key, as they will need a unified approach to 2023. Leila Johnson Salami, Arise News.
A wonderful report there by Leila Johnson Salami. We'll now be joined by Professor Abiodun Adeniyi, Arise Analyst, and Deji Adeyanju, activist and convener of Concerned Nigerians. Great to have you both. I'll start with you, Professor Abiodun Adeniyi. What does this Atiku Abubakar victory, mean for the People's Democratic Party? Is it going to be second time lucky for Atiku Abubakar, or he will find a very strong opposition in the APC? Deji Adeyanju, I'm sure you two would like to have a go at that question after Professor Adeniyi takes on that question. But great to see you once again.
Yeah, thanks, Rufai. I think, politics essentially is very fluid, and of course, occurrences in political spheres are like the desert sand, which is highly subjective, can actually often, be at the vagaries of the wind. 1 hour, of course, we know, can be like a year in politics. Atiku has come out, no doubt. He is victorious, no doubt. I think the shape of things to come, will still continue to unfold. I need to say that maybe on the general level in the first instance. But what strikes me really in all of this is that, our politics, is been taken over by moneyism. Everything we do is rather transactional and rather ephemeral, rather dictated more by cash. And of course, it's actually contradictory to what we should expect, as a democracy that should be fledgling. It's not about passing now, but we're just talking about the process. The process, is being sort of corrupted, by the absence of ideals, the lack of subscription to values. Everything, is just about cash, how much you have. And I do remember what Aristotle told us about politics once again, that politics necessarily shouldn't be about, it's not necessarily about rationalism, it's about populism. We understand that that's the practice across the world. But the tragedy of the Nigerian situation is that monism has been added to it. How do we get out of this? It's a problem. Let's keep that aside, Rufai. Then we'll move into the specifics of Atiku emerging. Well, he's an old war horse. He's got the war chest, and that's why he still remains relevant, irrespective of the machinations and the rise of the new breeds. Having war chest as well and being able to rival him, he still remains very relevant, and of course can still defeat them at a convention like this. But going beyond that, what does it mean for him? Well, it could go either way, and of course, APC is also there with their personalities. Bola Tinubu is there, the Vice President is there, Governor Fayemi is there, former transport minister is also there. We cannot completely tell, because beyond what happens in the pre-convention stage, what happens at the convention stage from the PDP lesson is also very instructive, because on the ground, on the convention ground, things might change even at a very frenetic space. And unlike the PDP, the APC has an ace that is still to be played, and that's the presidential aid. The voice of a president matters in the APC circumstance. Whoever he prefers, if at all he comes out to say this is the candidate that should have it, would rather have a head start above all things. So, I mean, it's a whole lot of web that will keep watching how it unfolds. But what is important is for us to have a free, fair, and credible, even transparent election. Not just for the good of our democracy, but for the good of our nation. Because we live at the moment in an atmosphere of hopelessness, where there's insecurity. The economy is at a tailspin. There's of course joblessness. There's a rush, amongst the youth to get out of this country. Even the elites, the power elites, the business elites, they are looking for a plan B, like a cleric once said in Lagos. I mean, there's a high level of hopelessness. We would need a new leader, that will that will help us reinvest our hope in this nation, rebuild, our collectivity, give us a sense of purpose, so that we can be happy once more, as a nation, with substantial promise, as the case could be, Rufai.
All right. Deji, I'm sure you've got your take on this.
Yes. Thank you, Rufai, and the team for having me. It's been a long time I came back here. For me, I think it's quite sad that one of the colonial and political ancestors in Nigeria has yet again emerged under the platform of the PDP. I have made my stand clear to Nigerians that, the political ancestors should not be an option or should not be on the table for the purpose of this ballot. And when I said political ancestors, I was simply referring to Atiku Abubakar and Bola Ahmed Tinubu, that having witnessed the colossal failure of a proud member of that team, which is President Muhammadu Buhari, in the last 7 years, that Nigeria deserves some form of relief from that generation of ancestors. Unfortunately, the PDP has gone the way of dollars yet again. We have seen and heard reports of how it was a dollar in at the Moshood Abiola Stadium here in Abuja. It's unfortunate that politics or democracy that should be a game of intellectualism, arguments, superior reasoning debate has been reduced to monetary competition and competition of financial muscle and power. Yes, we must also give it to the political actors within the PDP. We saw the handwork of Aminu Waziri Tambuwa, governor of Sokoto, in deciding the fate of the convention yesterday. Credit must also be given to Governor Yeson Wike, who put up a good fight, and other aspirants, Dele Momodu and others who scored 0 votes, notwithstanding, Bukola Saraki, Udom, Bala Mohammed, and others. The lesson to learn or to take from here is that we have a lot to do as a nation, because we are not where we are supposed to be, because this is 2022 and we're having a repeat of those who have been trying to be president 30 years later. It seems we are not making progress ideologically and politically. Our political jurisprudence is being dominated by the men of yesteryears, and it's unfortunate that the people who told us that the youths are the leaders of tomorrow are now still the leaders 30 years on. So, unfortunate indeed.
Okay, gentlemen, bear with us. We are going to take a very quick break here on the channel, and when we are back, we will pick up this conversation. Welcome back to Arise News. You are still watching our special coverage of the PDP convention the day after. And in our Abuja studios, we are still joined by Professor Abiodun Adeniyi, Arise analyst, and also Deji Adeyanju, activist and convener of Concerned Nigerians. Gentlemen, many thanks for staying with us. I mean, there's still a lot for us to unpack here. And Prof. Adeniyi, I would like to come to you because Arise News learned that Alhaji Atiku Abubakar's victory was as a result of a last-minute intervention by northern leaders, led by former National Security Advisor Lieutenant General Aliyu Gusau, to broker a deal for a consensus northern candidates based on intelligence that Rivers State Governor Nyesom Wike may have clinched the ticket. What are your thoughts on the whirlwind of events that have taken place over the past 48 hours and the way in which the PDP's presidential candidates emerged?
Well, Leila, like I tried to underscore earlier on, political processes can be very unpredictable, sometimes very convoluted, and oftentimes too, speculations will be added into it. Brilliant report by Arise, revealing those consultations that took place in the background, and they can be very, very instructive, really. And of course, it raises issues around, trust, around how we want to bother about homogenizing this country, and of course, questions around regionalism. Do not forget what happened in the pre-convention period, where there were agitations, for presidency to be zoned to the south, and not just to the south, but to the southeast particularly. And of course, it can be taken for granted that there were sections of the north, that weren't comfortable with this. Then, of course, we cannot discountenance the fact of Alhaji Abubakar being a grounded politician with a very strong network, very strong structure, and a very strong war chest. Of course, he will have built this over the years, and maybe the time was right for him to harness it, which he did. And of course, in harnessing it, power centers, like the former National Security Advisor was implicated in the process. How we interpret this really depends on where we want to come from and the destination, we are headed. But overall, I think it's all part of the power game that we keep talking about. What's the important question to ask in all of this is that where does it leave the people? Obviously, the people are all ostracized. The people are exterminated, from these circumstances, making it look like a circus overall, because if you imagine the amount of money, which I referred to earlier on as moneyism, the amount of money that we read in reports, spent during the convention is quite mind-boggling for a poor nation like this, where those hard currencies, those forex could have been deployed into manufacturing. And of course, it's very saddening, it increases our level of hopelessness, which is the bigger picture that I think we should be focusing on. But how do we deal with this again? Of course, we have no option other than to look forward to the next leadership. If at all, we're saying that the leadership that we have at the moment that is outgoing cannot do anything about it. Of course, I hope we'll just be on the next set of leaders. But who are these leaders again? Are they the ones, that are are they the ones, that are soaked in cash, that solely believe in the power of cash, to make things happen for them rather than subscription to values, to virtues in the manner in which some other aspirants, have advocated. And I have in mind people like Peter Obi, people like Kingsley Moghalu, and the rest of them who probably belong to parties that you say don't have the network, don't have the structure. That's the contradictions that we are finding in our political space, which we need to address, if we are concerned about sustainability of our nation and Nigeria. So these power games will continue. This horse trading will continue. These arguments around zones, around the machinations of power brokers will continue. But where does it leave the Nigerian people? Where does it leave the future of the Nigerian nation? These are more fundamental questions that we're not asking, which is endangering, I beg your pardon, our collectivity as a people, Leila.
All right. Deji, I'd like to ask you, which way then Nigeria? As you've stated, you don't feel happy about the emergence On the part of the APC too, we're still waiting for the candidate that will probably emerge on the side of the APC. But you're saying you don't feel excited, you don't feel the voice of the youth have been heard. Which way then, Nigeria? Could it probably, go all the way? Are people even looking at candidates from other political parties? Professor Adeniyi was talking about Peter Obi leaving, going to the Labour Party, Kingsley Moghalu, and the likes. Does it have to be an APC and PDP thing always? Which way, really, Nigeria? Deji, maybe I'll just go back to Professor Adeniyi you could speak on as we sort out Deji's audio. Professor Adeniyi, I'm asking which way, really, for Nigeria in all of this?
Rufai, I doubt if we have any other option. We have seen across the world how nations have tried to recalibrate, how nations, have been painstaking in rebuilding themselves. I doubt if we can also do it, without using a leader that is conscientious, a leader, like I keep saying, that will rise above our differences, that will not remind us of those differences, but not a leader, that will emerge, through only because that leader has the power or access, to public wealth, or has a huge war chest. Those things, are ephemeral. They are bunkum. At the end of the day, the people will see through it, and of course, some of the downsides that has bedeviled all over the years will just, will continue, and it remains very unhelpful. They are not sustainable. There are things that weaken our collective psyche. There are things, that deprives us of our sanity largely. Because when you see things happening in the public space, and you see the role of money in those public places, some people will see it as right. The politicians may not see anything wrong with this, but of course, some of them, maybe we shouldn't generalize, some of them actually are against it, but how many of them are really against it? But overall, you see, it does a lot of disservice to the psyche of the people, and to our ability to construct a nation. Do not forget that nation building often requires a painstaking effort. If you look at history, the history of nation states, from China to Italy to France, even to the United Kingdom, it's about a gradual process. And it doesn't just happen only in the physical, only in the tangible. Only in the tangible things, the intangible things also matter. The values we subscribe to, the virtues we subscribe to, the vision and the mission that we subscribe to. But what are our values now? Our value is simply about monetization of processes, transactional, rather than transformational. That's the bane of our system. And it is neck deep. It is deep-seated in our political processes. We have to deal with that. But overall, how do we deal with it? We also need a leader that will come against it and be determined really to change the narrative, as the case could be, Rufai.
Thank you, Prof. Deji, I was asking before which way Nigeria. You were already answering the question, but we couldn't get your audio. I'm sure we can get you now, Deji.
Yes, I hope you can hear me better now.
Yes.
Yes, so basically, I believe the way to go about it is to ensure that other people outside the APC and PDP, Nigerians rally behind them and support them. For me, the earlier question you had asked, Prof, I would have loved to chip in a few words. We saw how Tambuwal was a game changer at the PDP convention. I couldn't understand why other people from the South, could not have stepped down for one of theirs. I just couldn't understand that. And so it means other people are playing better politics. And again, I also believe that, Nigerians must wake up, rise up, and get involved politically. Because if people don't get involved in politics, then delegates from villages who have financial needs of 3,000 naira, 4,000 naira, or who $10,000 can easily sway will be the ones determining the fate of the nation. And even the whole idea of how these delegates are chosen is another problem, because a situation where the politicians are the one who are appointing delegates that will now turn around to come and elect them, it's faulty. If you look at the PDP, who are supposed to be in the opposition, there is no semblance of them repenting or forsaking their evil ways. You know, they are still extremely corrupt. They sold almost all their House of Assembly, House of Reps, senatorial tickets, gubernatorial tickets. They sold them for a fee. You know, we saw several allegations. The son of the former vice president in Kaduna, after he was duped by delegates, even was boldly crying almost close to tears and asking for a refund of his money. We also saw how Senator Shehu Sani narrated how one of the aspirants in Kaduna went around with vigilante to collect back his 100 million naira from delegates. This kind of a situation cannot produce anything but corruption and fraud and looting, and snakes will be swallowing money in public offices. Again, I must particularly commend the EFCC for acting on our petition and even making an attempt to go to the Moshood Abiola Stadium to try and prevent open vote buying. We know that the vote buying must have taken place one way or the other, because there were several reports of dollars being shared in 20,000 or 15,000 respectively. However, we must de-emphasize money politics, and we must focus more on idea politics. And we see idea politics in the US, in the UK. Yes, it is true that the third force platforms and options may not have the requisite structures across the country to challenge the main opposition parties. But these structures that PDP and APC have was not built in a day. Rome was not built in a day. People must be willing to do the work. And I believe that we need to start planting the seed now, so that in the next election cycle, we can confidently say that we can retire PDP and APC. Even if we do not succeed now, we can succeed in the next election cycle, or we have a 10, 12-year plan and say, because these big political parties didn't just arrive here today. This democracy is about 24, getting close to 24 years now. So it's been long coming. And you can't just build a party now and expect some miracles to happen. You need close to almost 150,000 agents all across the country if you want to challenge a presidential election. And I am of the idea that we need to adopt the EFF approach in South Africa. In challenging the status quo, it must be from bottom top. It can't be top-bottom approach. That we need to, there are so many low-hanging fruits, like House of Assembly. If you register some political parties or get people to go into some political parties, new political parties, people can go and contest House of Assembly, House of Reps. We start from there. And the EFF, when the EFF in South Africa started by Julius Malema, they started with, I think, about 2.5%. Today, they're about 16, 17% control of parliament. And you know, South Africa runs a parliamentary system of government. So you can imagine how powerful the EFF has become in South Africa. So we can use the same approach. We can learn. There are learning curves all across the continent and all across the world. We saw what Macron did in France as well, and a few other places. So we can actually compare notes with those who have done it before, and we can learn from them.
Thank you, Deji. We'll go on a short break, and we will be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back to Arise News. You are still watching our special coverage of the PDP convention, which took place yesterday in Nigeria's capital, Abuja. And in Abuja, in our Abuja studios, we still have Professor Abiodun Adeniyi, Arise analyst, and also Deji Adeyanju, activist and convener of Concerned Nigerians, with us. Gentlemen, sorry, we did lose you there for a second. And Prof. Adeniyi, I had just come to you with a question. I would like to know how you expect that the APC are going to strategize now based on the outcomes of the PDP primaries. And there are different reports. There are certain reports, for example, with calls for the APC to zone the presidential ticket to the northeast to compete with Alhaji Abubakar. I believe that call was from Senator Orji Uzor-Kalu, who called for the president to choose Senator Ahmed Lawan as his successor. It's also being widely reported that the APC may be plotting to put forward former President Goodluck Jonathan as their party's candidate ahead of the elections. What are your thoughts on all of this, and how are you expecting that the APC is going to strategize ahead of their party primary?
Well, Leila, I think at the moment is presently a bad day in the office for the APC, because they're going to be juggling things from now until their convention. A bad day in the office because the atmosphere is convoluted, and of course they have very strong characters, very strong personalities. Asking to fly the flag of the party. I don't have to mention names, of course. We are familiar with many of these names. The strong personalities, many of them brilliant, many of them rich, many of them with strong structures and networks across the country. So it's going to be very difficult to actually ask any one of them to step down for the other, But of course, again, the question of zoning comes in. But in all of these, there's going to be a struggle at the end of the day, choosing between two candidates, as the case could be. Whether or not that candidate comes from the north or comes from the south may not matter at the moment. But like I said earlier, the factor of the president matters. And of course, it may just be like a gamble at the end of the day. Who will the president want to support eventually? Like he did in the build-up to the election of their chairman. Who will he want to support in this instance, irrespective of the campaign, adventures of the aspirants, that we have so far. Who the president will want to support will matter in the circumstance, and again, they also have candidates who can actually rock the boat if they are not supported, because strong characters may not be people that you can push aside in political calculations, but APC is replete with them, from permutations and from obvious, from their pedigrees, in the circumstance that we are discussing. But I won't want to be definitive, Leila, really, to say this and this will actually happen. It's not a question of being teleological to say put A and B together and it comes to C, no, or put C and D together and it comes to E. Not a question of that. It's a political discussion that we're having. Quite all right, but I do believe at the end of the day, the race is going to be between 2 or 3 candidates in the APC.
And who are
2
those
from the
2
south
or 3 candidates?
and 1 from the north, irrespective of my... Hello?
Yes, Prof, who are those 2 or 3 candidates that you believe the race is going to be between?
Well, from the south, I think... between Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu and the Vice President, Yemi Osinbajo, and from the north, of course, the President of the Senate, Ahmed Lawan, in my own calculation, between those 3, I think one of them will fly the flag at the end of the day.
Okay. And concerning all of this, I'd like just to have your take, Deji Adeyanju, on this turnaround by INEC. I thought INEC said they were going to be firm. The dates were fixed. All of a sudden, INEC extended the date, for parties to be able to conduct their primaries, and the APC pushed theirs forward just one day before the conduct of their primaries. I mean, what does that say to you about INEC in this election? That's number one. And secondly, let's just project. What do you think are going to be the possible outcomes of the APC convention when it finally happens between the 6th and the 8th?
Yes, when Prof was talking about the candidates who are likely to emerge from the APC, one of the maxims of equity flashed my mind to say that he who demands equity must do equity. I naturally believe that both Tinubu and Osinbajo should not even be considered for the APC job, because the Southwest is completing an 8-year vice president tenure. And so when I see people even mentioning them, then I tend to say those who are also canvassing for power to stay in the North are right. Because if we are talking about equity, those who come to equity must come with clean hands. And Asiwaju, Bola Ahmed Tinubu and Professor Yomi Osinbajo SAN, they are not coming to clean hands on the table of equity. You know, the Southeast should naturally have the right of first refusal, knowing fully well that we have been plagued with secessionist agitations and divisions. Our fault lines are so visible currently in the country. Nigerians will recall that what led to the compensation of the Southwest in 1999 was the tension in the country. Back then, they said, oh, MK Abiola had died. The country wanted a united nation. We wanted a situation where, you know, our fault lines will be rectified. And President Obasanjo and Olufalaye were on the ballot. If not for the coming into the race of Asiwaju, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and Osinbajo, many other people, you can see people now contesting from everywhere in the country. You know, and this is the danger. And now PDP has put forward a northern candidate, and the danger is that APC is under pressure, immense pressure. I agree with the prof. APC is now under immense pressure to also do same. And as to the second question, if I think I got you right, was on the... It
was about INEC. All of a sudden, INEC just extended the dates. They said they were going to be firm before. APC was supposed to have their primaries. PDP had locked in everything, was going ahead with their primaries. And the next thing, INEC extended the dates. This same INEC that was complaining that there was no time before.
In my mind, I always want to give INEC the benefit of doubt, but in my mind, this case was too glaring. The collusion was visible. It's unacceptable. You know, INEC is an umpire. And this also brings to bear the allegations that there are too many APC people in INEC now. You know, look at Professor Gomos is there. She's a member of APC from Bayelsa. So many other allegations of people who are just APC members simpliciter within the commission. They are national officers in the commission, and they are behaving like APC members. And this is one instance where the collusion is too visible to ignore, you know, and it's too strategic because we saw that the APC were not getting ready whatsoever for convention. And all of a sudden, INEC postpones. So it is sad, it is regrettable that we are having this kind of blatant collusion by an independent umpire. And Professor Mahmoud Yakubu should just be mindful that these things are going to count one day against him.
All right. Thank you so much for your time, Deji Adeyanju and Professor Abiodun Adeniyi, you know, Arise News Analyst. Thank you so much for your time. It's been a very interesting evening with riveting conversations. You know, we have extracted and reviewed in total the PDP primaries that have presidential primaries that happened yesterday. We've taken learnings, you know, we've juxtaposed that with the potential scenarios,
strategies and scenarios
that might come out of the APC. And we're also looking forward to the process in general leading up to the 2023 presidential elections. I mean, Leila, your takeaways from this?
There's a lot to speak about here. I know that we're running out of time. Great conversations regarding the strategy, the way forward, and also the PDP's plans now that their presidential candidate has emerged. So more coverage as stories develop, as we know, here on Arise News.
Right.
And it's a wrap on the PDP convention special coverage by Arise News Channel. Many thanks for staying with us. I'm Leila Johnson-Salami.
And I'm Rufai Hussain. It's been a great evening. Thank you so much. And have a great night rest.